Hello, YouTube Infinite Magicraid community. Gandalf here. So today, I bring you another special guest onto the video, and many of you might know him. His name is Apol. Hey, Apol.
Hello.
All right. So many of you probably have seen him win the junior championship a couple of times, or see him in the final rounds. But what he's probably more known for is his tremendous accomplishments in the faction Abyss. He's probably the lowest level player, so the least, number of, month played to have gotten to Agatha E3. So if you actually go take a look in faction Abyss, and you can see his team compositions a little bit. So, sorry, let's go to faction Abyss here. Um, and he has gotten Dragon Tribe, Sword, Harbor Guards, Holy Light Parliament, and Wizard Eye Complete. And if you look here in the boss guide, you will find in the low power reference, he's often either the lowest level player that has completed it, and often he probably has the lowest power on the completion as well. Um, so it's quite the accomplishment there. Sorry, I think that wasn't 30. This is 30. So there has been only 4 players in the game so far, and he's one of them to have cleared Sword Harbor. You can see his Dragon Tribe accomplishment here. And on the boss guide, you see that I think he's the second lowest power. When I first, started talking to him, he was the lowest. Again, looking at the exclusive, he does have probably the lowest exclusive team here as well. So what we're going to do in today's video is to have an interview with Apo and have him talk to us about, how does he go about beating the Abyss? What are some of the suggestions he could have for our player base as they venture through the faction Abyss and trying to push to the top and eventually get that exclusive 3 on their Agatha? He's also, I think he shared with me, he got his Catherine E5 very early. So, we're going to spend the latter half of this video talking about maybe some tips for our newer players. What are some of the ways you can really accelerate your progress in the tower? So again, sorry for keeping you guys all waiting. Enough yapping from me. Over to you, Apo. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So go by Oppo. And a little about me, I guess. I'm a carpenter. I've got a real passion in building and making things. And that's pretty much it for my personal life. I do have a wonderful girlfriend. She supports me in everything that I do, so I cannot thank her enough. And as far as like my journey in IMR, it's actually kind of funny. I came from another game. This was a Tapjoy offer. So I downloaded IMR, and one of the challenges they wanted you to do was to get an E5 hero, and I had no idea what that meant. So the very first legend that I came across was like Claude and a few others, but I really liked Claude, and he was the first one that I made E5 for the Tapjoy offer. And of course, I regret it now, but at the time, it just seemed like the way. And then once I got to the Hell campaign, he just fell off immediately. And around that time is whenever I joined the Wolf Pack, which is now the Bulls. Um, But yeah, so that's pretty much how I got started. I would say that once I joined the Wolfpack, I've got to give props to Polly. He was a great help in starting out, showing me all the different features and what have you. Because really, I was just kind of swiping the card and doing whatever I could to uh, complete the tap drawer challenges, right? But he showed me how to grow my account, and how to get better at certain aspects of the game. And then I kind of took his knowledge and applied uh, what I know to further progress. So the first thing that I really did was tower. And I know it's maybe not as impressive as the faction Abyss, but I did complete Tower of Mark in 30 days, and then the Agatha E3 took me a total of 138 days. And that's both of the major PVE accomplishments that I guess you can achieve. As outside of Wuthering Coast to reach the max, which no one's done yet.
Yeah.
But I think Clee will be the first one to do that.
Yeah, that's pretty darn impressive in terms of how little you play on the game and how quickly you got these things done. let's not talk about how much swiping we have done here, to get to that. But maybe if you can show the our audience a little bit your account. I know you're streaming yours right now and have yours showing on the screen. Maybe share with the audience here, how far along are you in your sanctuary, both the base and the incarnated sanctuary, so people can have a general understanding of where your heroes are at, how much bonuses and boosts you have. Maybe show them, yeah, so we can see you're only at 14,000. So many of the players do are familiar with my account, and Gandalf the White is around 17,000 now, and the gray is around 12,000. So Apple is somewhere in the middle there, probably in line with most of the whales that's been playing for about a year, or even your average spenders. You should be around this level now, but I don't think many of us are even close to getting Agatha E3. So it's quite the accomplishment what he's got here. And over here, he's at, okay, 24,000. That's, sorry, 2,400. That seems a bit high. So you definitely have done your share of summonings for sure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
lots of summons.
lots of summons to get to here. All right. I think your talents are also pretty high too, right? Because I know you do quite a bit on the arena as well. So that's quite a bit
Yeah,
of
so the arena
progress.
talent is very high. I
Yes.
do like 50, 60,000 points every event.
Yes, but I think the Mark talent, because it's so time gated, you're probably a little bit behind many other players. Yes, I can see. Not even 20s across the board. Or have you gotten
Well,
most of them
I do have 20s for blue and for
blue?
force.
Okay.
Blue and force, I've got 20s. Red is what I'm working on right now, but it's going to take me another. I want to say it's like
Yeah.
no, it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's going to take me about 6 weeks to max or to level 20 the reds, and then the greens are also kind of atrocious.
For sure, I think this really hurts again the newer players, because anyone who's been playing for about a year now probably would have gotten at least all their speeds maxed out, everything else to 20 by now. So this is, I think by showing these gives our audience a good sense of, from a stat wise, you know, for maybe someone who's been playing around for a year and having Agatha E3 as a goal, you're really actually not that far away from a stat wise. So maybe let's go through, your thought process. How did you go about, pushing so far on Faction Abyss? What's your secret to it?
So really, it's more so just a content that I enjoy, right? So when I started, I guess whenever Paulie took me under his wing, right? He was trying to orient me in a PvP direction, and I kind of took to it to begin with, but once I realized that it was more about how quickly you could go and cleave the other team and things like that. Of course, we've got more limiteds and stuff like that, so there's a more bruiser meta evolving. But at the time, it was mostly cleaves, and that was just boring to me. Is how fast you go first, win. So I started doing Faction Abyss, and around the time that I started taking it serious was whenever Lydia got released, and Wizard's Eye was the very first one that I took on here. And I want to say that the addiction really happened with Wizard's Eye because I had gotten to about 25, 26 and realized that each stage is exponentially more difficult. It is like 26 is nothing like 27, 27 is nothing like 28. And as you go on, it just gets that much harder. Um, so really it's a methodical per faction strategy that you have to take this by. You can't just kind of throw heroes together and do it. You have to study how the waves interact with your heroes that you have. So, what I would recommend for people is just start with a high floor. A lot of these do have 30 clears, but not all of them. So, I would go to the boss guide and see what other people have used. And that's your reference to like what team you need to make. So, like for Wizard, you're looking at Lydia's, Nidrold's, Howl's, Melchios, Spaces, Anna's, Elix, Lysander's, heroes like this to kind of build your team around. And it's not a one size fit all because like you see here, people are using Anna, people are using Lysander, people are using Elic. There's a number of different ways you can go about it, but pick a team and start running with it. Um, the there's a few important things that you have to take into consideration. One being healing. The boss does a ridiculous amount of damage. So you're going to pretty much need a recovery horn in every single faction. So whatever team you have, like whenever I did Wizard, I think I used let's see, I used this team, and when I started, I switched a bunch of auras around, and I ended up settling on recovery horn for Elec. Um, survival for Hal because he does the ally protect and he loses it once he uh, drops below a certain threshold of HP. So survival is really good for him. But you have to kind of study these exclusives and their abilities and pick auras that work well with the different heroes. And you're always going to want a recovery horn somewhere. It's just not avoidable. The boss does way too much damage. You can't get around not having a recovery horn. And then other auras too, like Combat Vanguard is really good. Skill Master is really good, and of course, for your DOTers like Midroad and some of the other DOTers and the other factions, you're going to want Advanced Hit or Hit Grandmaster. And if you can't really go towards the Legendary Aura scale, sometimes like the Blue Mastery Aura works. You can use Mastery Surge, just things to boost your damage because you do want to kill that boss quickly because the more turns he takes, the higher chance you have of dying. I will say that the boss's abilities are ridiculous. Let's see, does it show his abilities here?
I think if you go to boss guide, you can look at it. Yeah, that's his abilities right now. Like, what
Okay,
should the
so
players be watching out for in, the skill rotation cycle?
okay, so the first thing is speed. Your shielders, and of course this is a weird faction, right? Because Space has a turn meter boost, so she doesn't have to be 2800 speed. But for floor 30, you have to be over 2800 speed with your shielder to go first. Because the first strike of the boss is insane. I believe it's which one? This one right here. So 3 stages of 100% attack damage, 15% chance to reduce their turn meters, inflict feebleness, and stun. So you've got to have a shield up for that, or you're just gonna die. There's no way about it. So speed is a really important key to this, but you only need your shielder to be that quick. The
Okay.
rest you can kind of play with. Like your damage is probably gonna be around
Hmm.
2,000. Uh, other things like that, and then another important note is the turns are in they're back to back. So he does a huge nuke right here. And there's a lot of RNG involved too. So he does a huge nuke here. All 3 stages have a chance to crit. So what you're going to run into in pushing these higher stages is that sometimes all three will crit, sometimes none of them will crit. And you can try the same 430 100 times over and clear it one time out of 100, or you could clear it 10 times out of 100 or more. I mean, it just depends on what kind of stats you have, but you have
Yeah.
to play into the RNG element and
That
keep
that I
doing it over
remember
and
you
over
sharing
again.
with me because I think when I first cleared Dragon Tribe 30, and I asked you how did you possibly do it, and you're like I try like 100 times or something before I got it to get to that 3 star. So that's really impressive level of dedication, which many of us probably don't have, and will kind of run into frustration quite a bit. So audience out there, if you're listening, this is not the faint of heart. You really
No,
need.
you,
Stage
you,
30
you
is
got
quite
to want
substantial.
it.
Yeah, you really have to want it to beat it, but it feels so good once you beat it, right? I'm assuming, finally to get,
Oh yeah,
90 out of 90 stars on a faction there.
because
Um,
it's about the
yeah,
journey, you know.
yeah. I mean, from a skill kit perspective, I mean, which debuffs do you find are like the most important? Like, I think ideally we always want, the speed down and the attack down on the boss, but if you can't have that, what are maybe your priorities in trying to get through this?
Well, you're limited to what the heroes are in said faction, right?
Yeah,
So let's say Wizard, for example. You don't have very many options for debuff down except for Hal.
yeah.
His I think his basic attack or his S2 does a
As
debuff
skill
down,
two,
and
skill two, you have the anti crit and the down. So I think Wizard Eye actually has the most amount of clears, right? When we saw in the boss guide. So this faction actually had a lot of good heroes added, so that 30 became viable.
but you'll notice that
Yeah.
Lydia is the main hero.
Oh, for
Like
sure.
Lydia is in
Everybody,
every
yeah,
single
Lydia's
team.
getting the damage reduction is massive there, and also the turn meter to help you get your cooldowns back. But we saw Weasley there, which is really nice for the attack down, right? As a good option for people who beat it earlier. but I think later, I think it's on his ultimate, on her ultimate, on the ultimate, there's this attack down, which
Attack
is
down, speed
two.
up,
Yeah,
res down.
so those are very
Yeah.
important, debuff to look for. Maybe talk about to us your journey in Sword Harbor. That's probably the one I think it's most fascinating. And given, the three other players who have beat it are massive Krakens in the game. How did you
So
manage 30? I know you haven't
this
got three
was
star yet, but how did you do that?
yeah. Well, I actually got very lucky. So Sword Harbor, I probably tried the most. I want to say I probably in between 300 and 500 attempts on.
Wow.
Yes, I mean I played Sword Harbor every day for about. So the order that I went was Wizard's Eye because I had Lydia, so that was a fairly easy one. But at the time, it was only 6,000 Sanctuary.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that easy, but it was the easiest because of Lydia. Like Lydia just makes that a lot
Mm.
easier. Then I went to Dragon Tribe because I had Panda and Santa, and that's a really good combo
Yes.
for it. And then after that, went to Sword Harbor just because I wanted the challenge. And
You pick
ah,
something without slowdown, something without attack down.
yes, I picked an extremely difficult one.
Yes.
And really, I guess what it boiled down to was it
Was
was just
this was
really
this the team
making.
that you beat it with? I thought you had a Donald in there, right? For
No,
the
no,
damage. No. What did you use?
I'm the
What did you...
only person to kill it with Barry.
Oh, with Barry without a Donald. Wow.
The only one.
So what
Uh,
made Barry help this comp?
well, it honestly it's just the damage. But I will
Oh,
be honest with you, Barry's a difficult build. Donald's a lot simpler to build, so I recommend to nobody to use Barry.
okay.
He's he's a B tier hero for this.
Okay.
Um, I just is his build. His kit's very complex. He
Yeah.
requires crit rate, crit damage, mastery, effect hit, attack. Like he has a bunch of stats that he needs.
Hmm.
And I really thought that once I got this E3 that it was
Yeah.
going to be huge, that was going to be it. But no, because this E3 only works whenever you use S4 and it does detonation damage, which happens very little with Rister and Sigmund because I mean Rister and Ben Austin because you can't really time it. You've got to be doing as much damage as possible, so this doesn't happen.
So
This
you're
this
really
is
not
very
actually getting the turn meter, basically, you're saying. The reduction.
basically, yeah. It per you might hit it twice throughout the whole stage. Is very minimal. So I thought this was going to be the key, but it wasn't.
Okay.
I would say Barry is just a he's a hard hero to use for this.
Okay.
If you have access to Donald, use Donald.
Okay, so
Um,
the Donald composition you saw there was really the key. I'm surprised people use Whistler. I get how Whistler will help a lot with the damage boosting, but don't you run into a lot of situation because he's taking the double turn, he dies very easily? Like I'm only on I think 26 or 27, and I find it's hard to keep him alive because he keeps losing his shield and buffs from
well,
Catherine. Like how did you go around that?
you just don't use it.
Oh, you just don't use his skill too.
You don't use the double turn when the boss is about to use his ultimate. You have to use it specifically after that second ultimate is whenever you use the skill 2.
I see. Okay.
Yeah,
The
so I mean, it's you have to time his ability because he's like Melia is a suicider. So you have to
yeah.
time heroes like that specifically with the boss's rotation abilities. Otherwise, they're gonna die.
Okay.
Um, and then another thing too is as far as like gear goes for pushing these factions, you're gonna want a lot of uh feather gear. Feather gear seems to be really awesome for it because you're able to get the speed that you need and have high HP. So for your supports, wow, this won't load. So for your supports, if you can find feather gear that has, HP rate substats and speed, that's going to be ideal. And I did mythic a few pieces. Like this is one piece that I like to use, and then this is another piece that I like to use, just for the HP rate and speed.
Wow. And I
Yeah,
think what you do is, as it's really more to move all of your auras, move your gear around, focus on just those heroes from that faction as you're pushing it really hard that week, right? As until you get to the
yeah.
30. So you don't really
So
have
you're
to, yeah.
you're gearing up for one faction, and if
Hmm.
you're trying to push for E3 Agatha, you're not like just trying all your different teams to see if you can beat a stage. You have to specifically move everything to the faction, otherwise you're not gonna like you're bringing a knife to a gunfight. You know, like 430 is a gunfight, and you want to bring
Yeah,
your guns.
right. This is like moving all of your best gear on those five heroes, move your best auras over. So it's quite the investment of time. You,
Yeah.
how many regression potions are we talking about here?
Um. I want to say I've probably burned through maybe since starting like 60 or 70 regressions.
Okay, that's not bad. I thought it would be in the hundreds, but
No, I mean I will say I've regressed heads like 4 or 5 times.
yeah.
Like there's some heroes that I'll build, I'll try a faction, I'll be like, okay, well I'm stuck. Let me just move to a different one.
Hmm.
Because I do have several that haven't cleared 30 yet on. Like Nameless, Sunset, Doom. Well, these are also really hard factions to do. Nameless is a little bit easier, but I'm missing exclusives on a few heroes. Yeah, I don't have
Yeah.
this chick E3 yet, and she's
She's kind of
kind of a
key
key.
for the tanking part. French is a really also really key and good one as well for the
Yeah,
attack down and tanking.
I, and he does turn meter reduce too.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so he's really good.
Yeah. I'm surprised Judgment
But
managed without Timmy. I think with the Timmy skill update, I think Timmy now becomes a common pick for a lot of people I
yeah,
see.
Timmy's
Yeah.
he's very good. I think
Per,
for this I use this team right here.
hmm.
But I do have her. I just don't have the exclusive. That's why I haven't even
Yeah.
tried to
You,
push it
you, you,
yet.
th- you think you think Magni's not going to be able to, do the same thing from consolidation plus the shield?
Well, he could be, but the problem for me is that I can't really. You need a mythic third artifact to get your shielder up to 2800 speed,
Ah,
and
right.
Hopper is the only one that I have that I can get to the speed that I need to
Oh,
like
yes.
the way that I do this is I use Popper to reduce the turn meter, and then
Right.
that lets my Fritch code reduce turn meter, and then I can kind of play off of that. So
Yeah,
I mean,
that
there's different strategies about it.
definitely,
But
definitely.
it-
Yeah, that's quite something. So what's your next goal? Is Nameless what you're going after next, or are you going to try to do Doom? Because I know Zora was a new addition that gave Doom attack down, so you now have attack down double with little Jack's damage reduction. That should probably help things a little bit there, right? Or I'm totally
well,
off on
right
that.
now I've pulled off of faction for a little bit and focused on Wuthering Coast.
Okay.
I could have done 429 but at the time, so when I beat Sword Harbor, that was it. It was on because I was stuck on Sword Harbor for about 3 or 4 weeks. Like I said, I played it 3 to 500 times. I was stuck on it for a really long
Wow.
time. And then as soon as I beat Sword Harbor, within 24 hours I had E3 Agatha because then I did like it took me 2 hours to do Holy Light, and then I just soft pushed everything and got the E3 Agatha. So I switched quickly from Doom to Sunset, just so that way I could get her and be done with it. And then I moved over to Wuthering Coast because Coast is important for red shards. So
Where are you on Coast? Are you past the 3.2 yet?
oh yeah, I'm getting close to.
Wow.
I'm working out a team for 6.4, but soon as I switched off of the faction, my first real attempt at Wuthering Coast, I got 3.2, and then this would be like my second attempt. I got 5.3. I don't think I'll get 6.4 next week,
Maybe if you want
but
to share with the audience very briefly, what your teams look like. If you go to
yeah.
ranking, you can see your teams there.
So I only have like this is a serious
Oh my
team.
God,
This
2 points.
this is a serious yeah. So these first three teams are my serious teams, and then this one's still a work in progress. Like I have to put exclusives on Millet. That's really important for the poison team. And then I haven't quite done enough testing to learn how these skills interact with each other. I
Hmm.
know with Magdi he's supposed to do a lot of damage.
Yeah, I
But
think
next week,
yeah that one definitely. I think if you just give Malot to E1, you're gonna see a lot of damage from Malot too because the skill too. So you got another
right?
couple hundred mil there from it. But 6.4, that means your last team really has to come together now.
Yeah, this is just five random heroes that I threw
Yeah,
together just so I could
yeah.
collect my 60 shards.
No, this is absolutely Incredible. Maybe as we wrap up this interview, maybe some tips for the newer players who are watching. Maybe, what are some of your thoughts in Tower, as that's probably, the first major PvE milestone for people. I know I haven't really wrote out guys too much on here, but I feel like, with an expert like you, you're probably in the best position than anyone, given you finish all this in the first month of playing.
So if you were new, you can go about it two ways. You can take your time and you can just clear it one tower at a time with the normal progression of just upgrading heroes, putting scrolls on them, etc. Or what I had done to clear it so quickly was I took it one at a time, same attempt or same strategy as the faction abyss, right? So I would go to the boss guide, compare what heroes I have to what people were using. Well, fast clearance is not a good reference guide because people are doing crazy stuff like with four heroes to get low clearance. But if you go to low power, this will give you an idea of what heroes you can use to clear this tower. So you'll
Hmm.
look at what they've got, what you've got, and kind of combine the different abilities, right? You're gonna want shielders, you're gonna want DOTs, like those are king. And then it's very important to have everyone A5 and scrolled. Sometimes you can get away without it, but it's going to be a lot easier time. And if you're trying to do it quickly, stock up on regress potions. And when you're done with the faction, regress the like Melia is not super important for your PvP or mini PvE conquests. So you'll regress certain heroes and then move to the next faction. But just refer to the people that have already done it and build your teams
Hmm.
around that based off what heroes you have and try to create a synergy there. I know Santa's really big for Force Tower. For Blue Tower, Nita. For Green Tower, Nordak and Ben. For Red Tower,
Hmm.
Catherine and Sigmund are really big. Those are like four heroes. But again, just refer to what the people that have done it before you have done and look at what heroes they've used and what heroes you have. And that's going to be how you kind of figure out the teams to beat it. And
Yeah.
I can't stress enough that scrolls are important. Like don't
Yeah.
don't use unscrolled
The
heroes because the cooldown reduction on the shield is big. um,
yeah.
I guess another important note too for this is you want to kill the boss fairly quickly because his damage scales each time he uses an ultimate. So once you get to about I want to say 12 to 15 boss turns, his damage is going to be so much that he's just nuking your team. So if it's taking that long, maybe focus less on your shielders and focus more on increasing your damage. So that way you can kill him before it gets to that point where you get nuked.
Yeah, I think that's probably something a lot of people forget about, right? It's like they focus so much on how do I survive myself to the boss, but you end up not having it's almost like an enrage timer like in games. Like if you get to 10,
Exactly.
yeah, it's just like that. Maybe I would also add like should players also take a look at, what's on, say, other players are using for 27 and 28, because I think sometimes because every four stage you have different mechanic. Like, I think you might want to just watch, do you need a specific hero for like 27 because you need to get that single target damage through? Or like,
Yeah,
oh
that's
no, oh, some actually using the exact same team here.
it
Um,
can be important and it also you can kind of ignore it some. It the like for example, I used Hez to clear 427 on the Green Tower. And I know he's AoE, but if you just don't use certain abilities, then you'll be fine. Like
mhm,
for example, Nibrold, he's got AoE attacks to S2 and S4, but if you only use his S1 on the boss, then he's not getting regen from hitting the ads. So you got to pay attention to the abilities that your heroes
right,
have and not use the ones that are gonna hurt you. And then of course for 28 and the shield bosses, you have to have a stripper. There's no way around
right,
that unless you
right,
just have massive stats and you can power through it. But as a new player, you won't have those kind of stats. So you'll need to look at what strip heroes are available for each tower. And then, of course, if it's a skill based strip, that skill needs to be maxed. So that way the cooldown is lower.
right. Well, thanks so much for your time, Apple. Are there final thoughts, you want to share with the audience before we wrap up this interview?
I guess don't don't try to do it quick unless you're ready to swipe the card. um, take your time, have fun with it. Uh, and for it's a methodical thing. You're gonna have to check your team, see how they interact with the waves, how they interact with the boss, and make adjustments as necessary. It could be a aura here, it could be equipment there. Maybe your DOT is not landing enough, and you need to increase effect hit. Like there's tweaks that you'll have to go as you explore this journey. And the only way that you're going to be able to learn what you need to do is by doing it over and over and over again. Like failure will create success.
Wow, that's a lot for our audience. I hope everyone here, whether you're a new player or a seasoned player aiming for that Agatha E3, you got a lot to take away from today's interview with, this very seasoned and experienced player. So again, we're part of the Stampede Bulls. We're a great community guild. If you listened, to this point, stay around for a recruiting pitch. I mean, you do have the description for our Discord link in the below. We're constantly recruiting, whether what doesn't matter what stage of the gameplay you are. It's a super friendly community. We have tons of great players. Like Apo here, and we'll be more than happy to help you along with your Infinite Magicraid journey. And of course, supporting me, please like and subscribe. Thanks so much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.